Hello and welcome back to Bluebaggers Edge. Another round, another loss. This time to the Hawks, and the scoreline reads 8-12-60 Carlton to Hawthorn 12-8-80. It was a game of wanting to see more from the team yet again. I mean, it obviously wasn't in the style of loss that we had in round one against the Tigers. So I guess, looking at things from that perspective, it was a positive. But it was just a case, again, of the team not being good enough. Again, granted, it was against better quality opposition. But, these are still teams that we should be beating, I think, or at least, pushing right to the line. And to me, it felt like, conditions were trying, yes, but it felt like it was, a game of two halves in a sense again. A lot of scrappy play, a lot of aimless kicking, a lack of structure, again, at various stages. It was just a game of, a game that I went into expecting us to lose, which is really disheartening because it's kind of, you would have thought that we're kind of over this and we're at a stage where we're heading into games thinking we are a chance at winning and we are a chance at least coming away with 4 points after having known that we've put in a 4-quarter effort. So let's start things off, as we always do, by going through the team stats, and we'll talk to things in a little bit more detail. In particular as well, I want to pay attention or draw attention to a video that Carlton released of Voss talking to the players post-match in the rooms, and just the language he used. And we might even play a snippet from the press conference, which left me pretty annoyed. But let's go through the stats. Of course, we'll start off with the disposals. And as you can see here, it was a 55 disposal differential in the favour of Hawthorn. Really, I think the big thing here was handballs, and you would have seen it, obviously, during the game. Just the way that Hawthorn moved the ball, they tried to sort of create a lot more connection, possession chains, instead of just bombing it long, which, again, we fell into the trap of yet again. It's virtually Groundhog Day every single time we do these review videos. It's the same thing week after week, round after round. And what I will say is just in our style of play, it was, again, one-dimensional, kicking down the line, bombing inside forward 50 again, the same deficiencies granted, but, you probably walk away thinking, oh, maybe it didn't look all that bad compared to previous weeks. Well, you must remember as well that it was a very, very wet, scrappy game, and this style of play kind of aligns with that scrappiness. And, hurried kicking, kicking to territory, even ground ball kicks, all that sort of stuff. It works with wet conditions. But when it's not wet, as we've seen time and again, it's dog shit. And we've got away with it this time, and it made us look better than we actually were, I think. It flattered us in a sense, the conditions. But you can't be heaping praise on the team and, more so the coaches here, because it wasn't something they'd strategized for. It wasn't something that we'd gone into the game with a certain tactical mindset for. But, having said that, even though it was wet, the skills from the Hawks outshone ours, and it's not difficult. I mean, we've been struggling with that dating back to late last year, really after the bye. It was a lot of that stuff we've seen where skill errors just creep into the game. And again, you can hide behind the conditions all you like, but take away the wet conditions and it would have been exactly the same. And probably would have worked more in the favour of Hawthorn had it been drier, I think, and we would have been exposed for our lack of skill set. Rolling through the rest of the stats here, inside 50s, they were very even, granted. And it's something here I want to touch on in a moment. But with regards to what was said in the presser, but 54 inside 50s and having 20 scoring shots, again, not good enough. You could probably say Hawthorn fell into the same trap, which they did. They had the same number of scoring shots as us, but, mirrored, opposite to what we were in terms of conversion. But again, it's that deficiency of forward 50 entries. No matter how many we have, we're not converting enough of those to scoring opportunities. And again, and Voss actually said this in the presser frustratingly about not making the most of our chances. And it's just lip service. It's lip service because of the fact that, again, you can blame the conditions, and it was a wet, slippery ball. There was chaos in terms of lack of structure, so on and so forth. It happened on both sides, yada, yada, yada. But again, it's the same thing week after week. And, take conditions out of it, and it would have been the same result. I can guarantee it. Disposal efficiency, they actually had 10%, almost 10% better disposal efficiency than us, which is quite telling, especially again in conditions. So taking conditions out of it, because we both played obviously to the same conditions, they were much more efficient. Efficiency inside 50 again in the favour of the Hawks. This is an absolute piss take here. I'm not usually one to identify free kick counts or make a note of it. And I know we get, crucified at various stages in games every week. But there was a stage there where Hawthorn were getting free kicks for stuff that we weren't getting free kicks for, which is the one thing that I absolutely hate when it comes to umpiring, because I know it's a hard gig, a very, very tough gig to try and do their job. But when it comes down to inconsistency of calls, that's where I draw the line. And it was late in the piece. Carlton was, it happens. Like, I know we say it, but it was virtually a case of almost the umpires trying to even up the free kick count, because at one stage it was, I think it was 16 to 28, I think it might have been. And then we ended up getting, would have been 8 free kicks in a row, and then Hawthorn got one. And looking at the free kick count at the very end, and listening to talkback callers on the way home on SEN, bring this up, and then whoever was hosting that night was like, oh, looking at the free kick count, it's 24 to 29, and, it doesn't look that bad. But you can't look at the free kick count in isolation. You got to look at every single free kick that is given. And if there is a discrepancy between, two near identical situations, and one's been paid a free kick and the other hasn't, or one's been paid a free kick against and the other hasn't, that's when you run into problems. And I just want to highlight this because it was a very frustrating part of the game. And I did see many opposition supporters that weren't supporting of either Carlton or Hawthorn, someone who is objective watching the game. I'd seen many people online saying it was a very poorly umpired game. So I just want to touch on that because it was, and, it obviously didn't dictate the result. We would have lost either way, I think. Hawthorn the better team, but it's just, again, I just want to highlight that because it was an absolute piss take from the umpires, and they need to have a really good review after that because that was very, very shit. Looking at the stoppage side of things, hit-outs were very even, but having said that, our clearance work, we dominated to the effect of having 12 in our favour. In terms of differential there, centre clearances, we had 1 in our favour, and then stoppage clearances, 11 in our favour, I should say. So in terms of the work, in the centre and everything else, we actually looked pretty good. Possession-wise, we got absolutely hammered when it came to uncontested possessions. Again, allowing opposition space, which again, and I keep saying again a lot, so apologies, but I say it because we're harping back to things which has happened time and again, and it's allowing the opposition time and space to get their hands on free footy virtually, and it's just so frustrating. So frustrating when in a scrappy game you should be expecting both sides to have quite an even, if both teams are putting in equal effort, then I think the possession count, especially the uncontested possession count, should be much, much more even. So just looseness in play there, not good enough. And with the marking side of things as well, scrappy game. And the Hawks, they still outmarked us. 25 extra in their favour. Marks inside 50. Better setup, better leading patterns, which we didn't have. 8 extra in their favour. Scoring-wise, it was a mirror of both, really, opposite one side. And defence. That was probably the one thing that you could hang your hat on as a Carlton side in terms of the amount of pressure that we were applying for most of the game. Not all of it. 1%ers, there were a few spoils, obviously, but also smothers, which I thought was really good, and one part of our game that I think was a big positive. So I was happy with that. Just want to draw our attention, of course, to Wheelo ratings and just have a quick look at just a couple of numbers there that aren't featured in the afl.com.au breakdown. And it is with regards to the score sources again. We conceded, again, 5+ goals on turnover. And it was quite even in terms of score conceded to via stoppage for both sides. Let's have a look back at. We might save Vossi's press conference for the next section, but I just wanted to jump across to the raw address is what they're calling it, the video, which we'll switch over to here on the Carlton website itself. And it was Voss talking to the players. And I think for me, it was surprising the terminology that it was using. I'll let you watch it with me, but just pay attention to the captions here and his attitude towards the effort that was put in. Not surprisingly, he was, positive enough, which is totally warranted. But to me, it seems as though he is providing too much positive affirmation, which I think for me is reinforcing into the team false expectations of a standard that I think should be higher than what he is talking about and to which he is talking about that he is satisfied with. So let's just play this out and have a watch.
That's what resiliency is. It's such a much more sustainable version of us to be able to play that way. Some of the contest stuff is unbelievable to us. But you also got to be realistic and know that there's some things we've got to get better. Right? So there's some contests that let us down. When we really come down to it, we need to be able to sort of stand up in the last quarter. There's some contests that probably let us down. So keep getting better at it. But it's a model that's far more sustainable. Our ball movement, our braveness, willingness to keep.
Okay, I just want to stop there because he talks about ball movement and willingness to keep playing us. Well, the ball movement wasn't good enough. Again, our skill set isn't good enough. And the fact that he is talking about that from a positive perspective really, really does irk me because even though he's kind of adopting a pragmatic approach, being like, okay, well, there's positives, but there's also things that we need to work on. And it's fair enough. But if we're having the same deficiencies week after week, and I'm sitting here with every review and talking about the same deficiencies cropping up, how is he standing there chatting to the boys, talking about, positives to come out of things, willingness to keep playing us, and talking about skills? Because it's the same issue. And, I'm probably someone that likes to think that positive affirmations and reinforcement does work because I think it does, and it does have a time and place. But I think it seems to me as though Voss is using this mindset every single week, no matter the result. I would love to see if he adopted this in round one. I'd like to hope not, but the way that he spoke about in the presser last week as well against Richmond says to me that he probably would have. Similar terminology, similar language in his presser, smiling, not looking pissed off or frustrated, which what he should have been against Richmond. So again, I'm very much doubting his ability to communicate communicate with the players, the messaging that he's getting across to the players, because to me, it's setting a low standard. Now, I'll just play the rest of the video here. You'll be able to see as well in the bottom left-hand corner, this is the back of Charlie, said I can assume, with the curly hair. But next to Charlie is Blake, of course, Blake Acres. And just have a look at his reaction. I don't want to be... It looks as though he may be scratching his leg or something, who knows. But it's a face that he pulls after something that Voss says. So just keep watching and I'll pull it up.
Even when we had moments where we're disappointed, that's what we've got to keep reinforcing. So walk away disappointed, right? But no, we're just starting. Right? Start from negative base, but we'll climb back. It's a far better version of what we're about, and it's so much closer to where I thought we'd get it. And we know we've got work to do. So don't go.
See that there? He's talking about, being so close to where we should be. We'll just play it back again. You can see Acres there wincing. I think he might be scratching his leg, but it is very, very coincidental. But, just talking about where I thought we would get to, and it's so much closer to where I thought we would get to. If you're thinking we're going to get to this point and still fall short, that's not good enough. I'm sorry, but as a senior coach, you need to tell these boys, this is not a standard that we want to set. We are not meeting the bar that we want to set week on, week out. We're not getting wins. We're 0-2. And he's talking about, getting so much closer to where
I thought
we'd get to.
We know we've got work to do. So don't go moping in this room. Take the loss, disappointed, and don't listen to one more thing outside of that. Oh, we got it? Yeah.
Don't listen to anything outside of this group. Fair enough. You want to keep insular. You don't want outside noise to infiltrate things. But really, it's if you're getting this messaging, this type of messaging from the senior coach, and you're not hearing critique from outside, that's fair enough. But it's just falling short of where we should be, really. Let me flick across again because I want to get the press conference back up and play it through, because it's quite hilarious, I think, in terms of the way that he talks to some of the questions that are directed at him by the journos. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts as well whilst I'm pulling this up in the comment section down below, because it's, Voss has been spoken about as, that great leader, that great motivator. We don't want just a motivator in our team. We want, someone that is going to hold players to account and adopt a fierce, I guess, hard-nosed approach, when it's warranted, not 100% of the time. But to me, he is like a shadow of the player that he actually was when he was at Brisbane. The way he conducted himself, really hard contested player, having really high expectations of not just himself, but his teammates as well. And it's like all of that got watered away because now he's almost like a motivational speaker. And it just doesn't work. So let me play the press conference here. I'll get it up on screen, and hopefully you'll be able to hear this. So let me play it through. But I'm trying to find the bit where the journo asks the question of Voss about there's the first one, which is Cripps playing in the ruck, and TDK being stuck on the bench for 10 minutes. And there was another one as well about inefficiencies inside 50. So I'll see if this is the point here.
50 really well. Our forward centres were really strong. I don't know, I think we had 29 of those. But we also know we've got a little bit of growth to go. So how do we become that just a little bit more efficient off those plays? So we got plenty of looks. There's no question on the looks. So we've got some marginal growth we need to get after to be able to consistently apply it a bit more often.
How did you see that inefficiency going forward? I think it was about 8 goals from 54.
Inefficiency inside 50.
That down to you, was it the lack of the Harry McKay focal point, or
No, not really. Sometimes just taking your moments. Yeah, don't make it more complicated. So sometimes just taking your moments. 8-12. Just, sometimes take your moments.
So just on that as well, that really pisses me off because our inefficiency going forward isn't an isolated thing. It wasn't isolated to this round. It's happened week after week again, as I've spoken about. And then to talk about and sort of deflect it by saying it's about taking moments. Well, it's not really. And again, you can't compare yourself to the opposition because, yes, they were more efficient, the Hawks, but with the amount of inside 50s that we were having, and again, same issue previous weeks, inside 50s, inside 50 numbers and entries have been quite a high number. But our, I guess, chances and opportunities that we've had in terms of scoring opportunities have been quite minimal. So for him to say it's just about taking moments, no, it's about setup. It's about the way that we have leading patterns, which at the moment are non-existent. It's about not bombing the ball inside forward 50, without any real intent. It's not about panic kicking inside forward 50. It's about hitting up targets. It's about having players in the right position, multiple positions to give, our midfielders and people kicking it inside 50 options, because there are no options at the moment. Hence the reason why people are just bombing it in. Obviously didn't help with Charlie being underdone. Probably say that his game, he probably would have benefited from a VFL match. Not that really happens nowadays, but I think it didn't help that Harry was not playing. So it meant that Charlie was virtually the main focal point. So yeah, there was that. And I just want to speak to as well, I don't know where it is in the press conference, the point, and I don't want to sit here and watch nearly 8 minutes worth of lip service being given to us. But he talks about, or at least it was mentioned about Cripps in the ruck. Now, can we please stop it? Just stop it. Like, we're playing our primary ball winner, arguably our best player, 2 times Brownlow medalist, wasted in the ruck. Like, I would much prefer to play no one in the ruck when TDK is off having a rest. Or play someone undersized and, train the midfielders to rove off the opposition ruck. Like, just have someone there applying a bit of body, a bit of pressure to the opposition ruckman. There's that. Like, we already traded away Matt Kennedy, who was arguably one of our better, contested ball winners. We can't really speak for Jack Carroll, but again, he's just depth in that area. And to have Cripps off in the ruck, it's a complete joke. To me, and I tweeted about it, to me it reeks of Leon Cameron when he was at the Giants, and he was virtually in it was in a time of his coaching career where he was going downhill, and he ended up playing Canelio off the forward line. He played Kelly out of the wing and I think off half back or something, which is not his, obviously his bread and butter area. And Whitfield was also pushed forward at stages. And, when that happens, you're not getting the best out of your players, and you're not getting the best out of your team ultimately, because they're first and foremost taking the position of a player who, plays well in that position, but you're also taking that player away from their position where they have the most impact. And are we getting real bang for buck having our, best contested ball winner in the ruck? Who's he tapping it down to? Himself? Have we got a clone? It's really just stupidity. It reminds me as well last year when we were playing Cherry off half back, and he persisted with it, Voss, for 3 games. And he was getting absolutely smashed. He's not a defensive midfielder in any sense of the word. And he was playing him in that position. And again, Leon Cameron, he went through that moment where he was trying things, and to me, it's an era of desperation more than anything. Coaches making those stupid moves. But, then there's obviously TDK being stuck on the bench for 10 minutes. And, I think that was before potentially that point there where he talks about it and has a smile on his face because he says that it happens. And I know it does happen in certain games, but that's poor interchange if that's the case. At a crucial moment as well, when we were still, relatively in the game. TDK was probably one of our most influential players. Just want to go back as well in terms of, because Voss talks about in the press conference as well, about the fight, about staying in the game. We kicked 6 goals in the first half. Then we ended up kicking 2 goals, 8. I know inefficiency there, but it's again just not good enough, and it's not getting into the right positions either, where you're in a high percentage chance of kicking a goal. Same thing happened last year where we were sort of kicking, hugging the wings, kicking to the pocket, and the degree of difficulty there in converting a goal from that position is quite low. It's a low percentage chance, and we're not getting ourselves in the best position. And it's all about that. It gets back to those basics. Well, I could talk about this game for another half an hour, but in the interest of keeping this relatively short, because I am conscious of also putting out a preview video for the upcoming game against the Dogs this round in round 3. And yeah, I mean, you can say that it was a game where we showed promise, yes, in context and perspective of what we dished up in round 1, but yeah, there was still a game to me where we were flattered by the conditions, not so much the way that we structured ourselves, the way that we played, tactically especially. I will say the intent was there, which is good, motivation, everything else, but just falling short in the basic skill set, manning up in your opponents, especially coming out of defense. Just line up on your opponents, please. Just basic stuff. But that's it, ladies and gents. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Let us know your thoughts down below as a bit of a reflection of the game, what was, key learnings, which are virtually the same week after week, as we always say. But that's it, ladies and gents. Thanks, as always, for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one. Go Baggers.
Have you ever heard